Welcome to JavaScript for Beginners, Lesson 1. Anyone can learn computer coding. This is not the province of some smart people. If you can speak to another person, you can speak to a computer and you can give command to a computer. This course is for absolute beginners. I'll use a lot of hands-on examples to give you very practical and clear explanations. So if you have no background at all, this is a class made for you. I'll show you where you can enter the code, where to code, and I'll show you how to code and debug, allowing you to watch live coding, and you will learn by doing and examples. There's absolutely no fear. At the beginning, I want to mention what I absolutely advocate for beginners. Number one is I advocate for beginners to learn Python and JavaScript. If you don't have the appetite, if you only want to learn one language, then learn Python. I have another short course like this dedicated to Python. It's much easier to learn by doing on easily accessible and free platforms. I don't like to get very sophisticated platforms and you spend more time learning how to use a tool than learning how to code. This is the outline. First, I want to draw a distinction between Java and JavaScript. JavaScript is not Java, although the word sounds very similar. I will then show you the editors and the run environment to code. Then I want to discuss the 4 basic repertoires of coding, how to produce output, how to assign variables, if switches and loops. First of all, Java and JavaScript are quite different. JavaScript is a lot easier. JavaScript is light. It is coding for web page behavior. JavaScript is used by a lot of people who design web pages. Java, on the other hand, is used for coding of desktops, Windows, and Android apps. It is very capable, but the learning curve is a lot higher. Unless you have a lot of time to dedicate, I don't suggest anyone to start learning Java. Java has a very high entry barrier. You can make an Android app with the Java platform. As you can see, you have to import a lot of libraries, a lot of packages, and so on and so forth. Each library and packages have their own versions, and so it can become quite difficult. For a new person, you may spend a day or two just to start to write the first line of coding. JavaScript is plenty for anyone to start to learn and grasp the concept of coding. So now let's focus on JavaScript and web page. JavaScript is really born to program the web page. One way to think about the JavaScript is to think about the live newspaper that you see in the Harry Potter movie. In the Harry Potter style newspaper, the videos can come out of the paper. And JavaScript is kind of like this. Now, what is a web page? A web page is a text document, much like Word and Excel and PowerPoint. JavaScript and HTML is used to be displayed on Chrome, Apple Safari. The web browser is shown here. It has a web page input address bar and a display area for displaying the contents of a web page. Here's a simple diagram. You have the web page, that's a front end. The web page is connected to an interpreter. The interpreter reads the HTML file and interpret the content and then make a display. The HTML file is served or provided from the server. The server is often connected to a database such as a library of goods that Amazon sells, or a library of books. Those are called database. It can be connected to Google or Amazon AWS. The HTML file is a text-based document. The web browser resides on a window. This is a window. The window contains a web browser. The web browser receives this HTML file, which has a lot of different tags. The backend of a web page comes from the cloud servers. The cloud servers in modern days are quite sophisticated. They come from a lot of big server farm wires connect from them to an average user. The next thing I'm going to explain is the editors and how to write a JavaScript code. Enough about the introduction. The HTML file has what's called meta tags. It starts with an HTML tag and ends with an HTML tag. It has head tags and it has body tags. For example, you can make the head be called page title, put a phrase in the body, hello world. And when the HTML is displayed, it will display the title as well as the content in the body. So to write hello world, you actually don't need to code. You just type hello world in the body. Here is a more detailed explanation of the HTML file. The HTML file is technically called DOM, Document Object Model. It has a cascading architecture from document to HTML to head and body. Within the head, you can put title, and within the body, you can have H1, that's a title bar. You can have different elements, and so on and so forth. This forms a cascade. It's called cascading style. What makes JavaScript a little more sophisticated than Python is the following. First of all, HTML is a text document. You can even write it on a word processor. Everything you write becomes an object. A head is object. A title is object. An H1 is object. An object can be manipulated by the browser. Think of a newspaper where every word can be animated. There's also listening agent. For example, when you put your mouse over something, hovers over something, then the behavior of the text will change. This is because there's a listening agent installed by the HTML file, by the script portion, and it governs the behavior. For example, when the mouse is superimposed with an object, it will animate it. And if I right-click, it will do something. So the DOM architecture is very interesting. It has text, it has objects, and you can control the text and you can control the object all through writing a bunch of text. I want to show you that all fancy websites can be written with a simple text editor. For example, this is the Amazon website. Amazon website looks very fancy, a lot of pictures, text, title bars, and so on. But if you press F12 on a PC, I believe it's a similar arrangement for Apple computer. If you type F12, you can inspect the document element. So this is actually the document that controls the display of this page. It starts with a document type, HTML tag, head tag, and so on. So I'm not kidding that every website comes from a DOM structure. It's just a lot of people don't know that they even exist. And you can see the HTML tag, the HTML tag here, it ends with HTML tag, a body tag, and so on, a head tag, and end a head tag. Of course, there's a lot of contents. If you click on these three dots, then it starts to expand. And there are a lot of elements, a lot of objects. Style class gives the pictures and so on. You can have links and you can have scripts. Scripts is the coding. And you can put your code into a JavaScript file so that you don't have to make this file extremely long. This is the website homepage of Yahoo Finance. And you can look at the actual HTML file, scripts, and everything. The next one is a homepage of the National Football League. And you can also see the file structure just by pressing F12. The hybridization of text, objects, and codes makes JavaScript extremely interesting because text can define objects. You can write a text such as a button, and a button would appear on the web page. The objects can contain text. For example, this paragraph meta tag is an object. What you put inside the meta tag becomes text. And codes or scripts can be associated and can generate both the object and their behavior. It is a very interesting concept for coding. The text content, the pictures, the behavior are all integrated together in one document. Now, how do we write and code in JavaScript? You have to understand two concepts. One is called the editor, one is called the interpreter. The editors allows you to type up the code as well as the text, as well as the HTML DOM structure. You can use any kind of text editor, even something as simple as a Notepad. You can use Microsoft Visual Studio, but don't use Microsoft Word, because when you save a Microsoft Word, there's a lot of extra elements that's hidden. The interpreter is a web browser itself. Every modern web browser is a coding environment. It interprets the HTML, interprets the scripts, interprets the code, and makes everything run together. Now, there are at least 3 passes to edit and code. Number one is you can use the W3 School, WCube School playground. The school playground allows you to enter script languages and you can run it very easily. But it's a playground. It's not a fully functional web page. Alternatively, you can use a Notepad to write the HTML file and put the extension as HTML. You can open the file with a web browser. The third method is to use Visual Studio. Visual Studio is one of the most sophisticated and free editor. You can write the text in a Visual Studio and display it on a web browser. Visual Studio does not contain a fully functioning web browser. So in this class, we are going to use the W3 Schools playground first, because it is the easiest. It let a beginner focus on the coding, on the code itself. A lot of people know that there are website designers such as Wix, such as GoDaddy, and you can use those what's called drag and drop functionalities called no coding website design. Certainly you can do no coding website design, but you're really just designing the appearance. If you want your website to have any rich behavior, you need to learn how to code. But here we're learning JavaScript coding just for the sake of learning coding. Learning how to program a website is another level of effort we're going to deal with later. Modern website designers using the what you see is what you get architecture. They can be very fancy, but a lot of times the platforms want to make money from the web designers. They don't want you to be able to have full access to the DOM structure. Their goal is for you to not leave their website, to keep paying the monthly fees. The pros of this approach is you can have beautiful design using templates very easily and stunning visual effect. But everything is provided by somebody to you. The cons of this approach is that you have no access to the text and code, and the user must conform to the platform and can never leave. We're going to use the W3 School Triad Editor. The W3 School Triad Editor can be accessed anywhere with a web browser. w3school.com, and I will show you how I can enter the code on the left, hit run, and the result will be shown on the right. Here is a sample code, very simple. It starts with a document type HTML declaration, HTML tag, and HTML tag, body tag, script tag, script tag. So everything that's in between the script tags are the JavaScript code. Everything not in the script part is the HTML element. Here, the H1 title becomes this H1 title. The H2 title, called creating a variable, becomes this H2 title. In the JavaScript part, I assign a variable car, and the value of car is fiat. And I display this value to this object. This object is a P object called ID equal to demo. And I replace the content of this by the value of this car variable, which is fiat. Now it displays fiat. This might be a little dry, but trust me, this can become very interesting very quickly. Now, the issues with using a code playground like the W3 School are the following. Number one is if your code is wrong, it does not complain. The website interpreter only interprets. It doesn't tell you that, oh, you have a code that's wrong, or I don't understand. And the playground doesn't have full website functionality. So not everything that it shows has the same behavior and feel as a true website browser. And it doesn't do any auto-completion. You have to rely on your own diligence to not make any single mistakes of punctuation and typing. This can be a little bit challenging even for established coders. You know how to write static text into the web browser. There are many other ways to do the same thing. What you write in the tag is the HTML content. You don't need a script. You don't need any command. Whatever you write is what you get. You write title, you get title. You write hello, you get hello, because up to now you're writing a document. Now let's look at output. The number one thing that you code is to make sure you can output. Otherwise, the machine cannot tell you what it is doing. In the HTML JavaScript setting, the output is very rich. You can output to a document. Basically, you produce a part of the HTML text, and you're writing to the HTML document, and the web browser would interpret what you write. Or you can write to a console. The console is just a programmer's helper. As you can see earlier, unless somebody knows the F12 trick, they don't even know where the console is. Another way is to write to the window. The window alert allows somebody to output to the windows. The windows contains the web browser. So there are several different levels of output. You can also output specifically to an object in a document. For example, you can have a document P tag, a paragraph tag, and you give this P tag an ID. The ID, for example, is demo. It can be any name. In the script, you can write document get element by ID demo inner HTML equal to correct. What it does is basically it fills the inner content here. This is the inner content with correct. And when you run it, it will send this to the middle of this P tag, and the P tag is red, and the HTML file would display correct in the web browser. Any self-respecting coding language uses variables. Instead of document write hello world, I can let a variable X carry the content of hello world, and then I can write the X. There are at least 4 different types of variables, just like in Python, just like in any language. You have the string type, which is text. You have integer, which is a number. You have float type, and you have Boolean type. For example, the string can be a word, car or boy. Integer can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The float is any number with decimals, and Boolean it just means true or false. This is the absolute simplest HTML document that anyone can find. It starts with a declaration that this is a HTML document type. This is the HTML tag. It ends with a HTML tag. Then there's body. It ends with a body. Within the body, there's a H1 tag. This means this is a title. And there's a P tag, meaning this is a paragraph. We actually can make it simpler by removing this line here. We don't need to use a paragraph with ID. Now this is the most important. This script tag is where you input your script. Script. This script says x is equal to 5, it's a declaration, y is equal to 6, z is x plus y. And then we print document write z. Let's see the result when I run it. When I run it, it says JavaScript variable, that's the H1 tag. The hello world is a P tag, and the result is 11. Let me show you some of the variations. I can change the title to my first HTML file. And I can change the hello world to hello world, this is me. Let's see the result. So now it says the H1 is my HTML file, hello world, this is me, and 11. Now let's see what happens if we take the script out. If we don't say this is a script, then the file is going to think that all these are text. So you have to use a script tag. Script and end script. Anything within the script lines will not be displayed, but it will be interpreted. There's another way to write, and this is a fancier way. Instead of document write, we can say document get element by ID demo, inner HTML. This is a very useful way actually. What we do is we define a P as an ID of demo. Anything within this has an ID. We can then fill the inside with the result of Z. Let's run it. Now this may look like nothing has changed, but let's change the name of this ID. Instead of this ID being demo, we're going to say this ID is a number. And then we're going to have document get element by ID number inner HTML equal to Z. And the result is still the same, nothing too exciting. We can do the changes. Hello world, this is me. And indeed, this code has changed. I have demonstrated to you how to assign variable values and how to display it. As we mentioned before, a code runs from the top to the bottom and never comes back. A switching allows you to decide how the code flows based on the conditions. So you can have branches and the code can run and give you much rich behavior. Let me show you one example. If x is less than 4, we want to write x less than 4 using document write. Else, we can write x is greater than 5. Let me show you how to use an if statement in the JavaScript. Again, this is our HTML file, document type HTML, HTML tag, followed by a body tag, followed by H1 or H2 tag, and a paragraph tag. We're going to use a if statement. If the hours that we get from the system is less than 18, we're going to say good day because it's daytime. Let's run it. We can change the code just to convince you that this is our own code. Hello world, this is me. And we can change the tag type from H2 to H1. Let me show you what happens. This will get a bolder title. Notice here. So now we're using an H1 tag. We can make the if statement fancier. We let hour equal to new date get hours. This is a system function. We assign a variable called greetings. If the hours is less than 18, the greetings will be good day. Else, the greetings would be good evening. And if we run it, it depends on the time of the day. I'm doing this at about 6 a.m., so it's daytime. We don't have to use a fancy get element by ID. So let me change this. Let me take this out. And we're just going to say document write greeting. It's the same result. Now I can make it fancier. Instead of writing greeting, I can write a H1 tag together with a greeting. And a end H1 tag. Let's see the result. Now it writes good day, but in the H1 tag format. We can change this to H2. And it will be a H2 tag. So I hope you understand now that the script produces a HTML phrase, and the interpreter interprets the phrase and displays it. In JavaScript, you can do looping, you can repeat. A repeat allows someone to repeat a portion of the program. Repeat loop goes back to a previous stop. The syntax of repeat loop for JavaScript is very interesting. It's quite unique. For let I equal to 1, I less than 10, I plus plus. What does that mean? It means that at the beginning of the loop, we set I equal to 1. And every repeat, we increase the counter by 1. I plus plus meaning we use I plus 1 to replace I. As long as I is less than 10, we repeat. Otherwise, we jump out of the loop. Let me show you a live example. Again, this is a HTML document, HTML type, HTML tag, the body tag, and the script tags. So everything within the script is interpreted as a script. Now, first we assign text is a string with nothing in it. For let I equal to 0, that's the initial condition. As long as I is less than 5, within the loop, we have I plus plus. Basically, it means I equal to I plus 1. We increase I and put it back into I. In this loop, we let text equal to the number is I plus a bracket. A bracket means a change of line. So now after we write this, we write the entire text, and this is the result. Let me show you some variations. If we let I equal to 7, now we're going to write it all the way to 6. One thing you noticed is we write the result at the very end, but we don't have to. We can write the result within the repeat loop. For example, I can write document write I. Now let's see what the result is. Now it writes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it writes the overall result. We can write a bracket at the very end. Document write bracket. You must use a semicolon in the JavaScript. So now we have this result. In summary, we covered the following in this class. I showed you how to do output, if, while, for, and variables. You should be able to use the IDE on your own and start to practice and learn. Remember that the codes run from top to bottom. The code passes can branch and repeat. JavaScript is one of the options for learning coding. If you're more comfortable with Python, which doesn't have the complication of web browsers and HTML, you can reference a Python course that I have on this channel. After using the W3 School Editor Playground, we can try to use a Notepad to edit a file. So you can use any Notepad in Macintosh or in Microsoft. And you just need to save this file in your computer and give it a HTML extension. Make sure the extension is HTML. And you open it by right-click so that you can choose to open it either as a Notepad or you can choose to open it with a browser. If you open it in a Notepad, you can edit. If you open it with a web browser, then you can see how the web browser interprets your document. Here I show you the example. This is a file that I saved. It's called index.html. You can see the icon already changed because the computer thinks that this is actually an HTML file. I can right-click, open with. I can open with a browser or open with a Notepad. Or I can open it with a Visual Studio. The important facts about this web page HTML business is the following. Each page is loaded only once. When you load a web page, the browser loads from the beginning to the end, and it never goes back unless you hit what's called the reload button. During the loading, it is read from the top to the bottom. So the sequence of the placement matters. I'm going to show you later on, but not in this course, how to use Visual Studio. As I mentioned, Visual Studio is free. Visual Studio allows someone to code, to build, to debug, to test, to collaborate and deploy, and so on and so forth. It's a very fancy, useful tool, and to be honest, it's pretty amazing that it is free. Using a Visual Studio, you can see the interface is a lot more sophisticated. The text have different colors to indicate their correlations. You save the HTML file, and you can save the style file, and you can save the JavaScript file separately. It's combined into a package. If you have come this far, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy it. If you go to my channel, you're going to see some Python courses and Python examples. I have bonus materials related to WCube and Visual Studio setup. I'm not going to include in this course because the YouTube clip would be too long. I also have example cases of sorting and password verification. Check them out. The links are at the end or at the bottom, and I'll see you in future classes. Thank you.